Good afternoon. Honorable Shri Piyush Goyal will join us in a few minutes. He's in a group of ministers meeting. He'll join us. He's conveyed the message that he'll join us as soon as possible. Honorable Dr. Rajiv Kumar, Vice Chairman of NITI Aayog. Her Excellency Ms. Damilola Ogunbiyi, Special Representative of the UN Secretary General and CEO for Sustainable Energy for All. Mr. Kumar Sinha, Joint Secretary of the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Ms. Nidhi Mani Tripathi, Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Kuntal Sen Sarma, Economic Advisor in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Partners at Villgro, particularly Srinivas Ramanujam and Anand Aravadum. My dear colleague Abhishek Jain and others at CEEW. Friends across the world. Welcome to a very special day for the inauguration of Powering Livelihoods. I'm Hon'ble Ghosh, CEO of the Council on Energy, Environment and Water. 10 years ago, we set up CEEW with a mission to use data, integrated analysis and strategic outreach to explain and change the use, reuse and misuse of resources. In 10 years, we have done more than 270 research projects. We've worked in more than 21, we've worked in 21 Indian states. We've been ranked amongst the best in the world. But it is our partnerships that help us take research to action. And therefore, we are particularly delighted that we are partnering with Villgro today to take one of our ideas from research to action. The idea to create jobs, growth and sustainability. The idea for an Atmanirbhar Bharat, for a self-reliant India, by using distributed clean energy to power up income-generating productive enterprises in rural India. We are gathered here today with a simple but ambitious three-point agenda. First, we want to celebrate belief. 5 years ago, Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal had released our report on the largest survey on energy access that had been conducted in the world of its kind. Since then, India has made huge progress on delivering clean cooking fuels and electricity access to millions of households. But the belief we had was that energy access had to be something that extended beyond just the household to include the community and even more so to have productive energy. The journey over 4 and 5 years of the research we have done in this area and then putting together to create a real action-oriented partnership to deliver support to the startups in rural India is something that we want to celebrate. The second agenda item is to celebrate vision. Of course, we are starting off with a program of about $3 million to support 6 enterprises, about which you will hear. But the vision is much larger. That can be used, the potential of energy efficient and distributed renewable energy to improve the incomes and the lives of women and men across the developing world and bring a more just and affirmative action-oriented approach to climate change mitigation and adaptation. And therefore, the third vision is around action. And we want to discuss the role that stakeholders like us in civil society, in government, in industry can play to bring together the evidence to catalyze the sectoral support that is needed to scale up these clean energy solutions directed at the bottom of the pyramid. We are honored that we will be joined in a few minutes by Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal, Minister of Commerce and Industry and Minister of Railways in the Government of India. He is a member of the the Upper House of Parliament, the Rajya Sabha, and the Deputy Leader of the Rajya Sabha. In the previous administration, he also served as Minister of Railways and Coal and held the additional charge of Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs twice in 2018 and 19. And he was also earlier Minister of State with the independent charge for power, coal, and new and renewable energy. We are delighted that we have Her Excellency Ms. Damilola Ogunbiyi, the CEO of Sustainable Energy for All and the Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for Sustainable Energy for All and the co-chair of UN Energy. She is also a commissioner of the Global Commission to End Energy Poverty. Before her current role, Ms. Ogunbiyi was formerly the managing director of the Nigerian Rural Electrification Agency, and in fact was the first female managing director of that institution. She also served as the senior special assistant to the president of Nigeria on power and head of the advisory power team in the office of the vice president in the federal government of Nigeria. And she was the first female to be appointed as the general manager of the Lagos State Electricity Board. We are privileged to have with us Dr. Rajiv Kumar, the vice chairman of NITI Aayog, with the rank and status of a cabinet minister in the government of India. He also serves as the chancellor of the Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics in Pune. He was previously senior fellow at the Center for Policy Research and earlier CEO of the Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relations. He has been chief economist of the Confederation of Indian Industry and served as the Secretary General of the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. And we are honored to have Shri Amitesh Kumar Sinha, who serves as the Joint Secretary in the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy and handles all the administrative and financial matters associated with the National Institute of Solar Energy, matters associated with the Solar Energy Corporation of India, the PM Kusum scheme on solar irrigation pumps, off-grid solar PV schemes, and applications including rooftop solar, solar manufacturing, and so forth. You will hear from all of these dignitaries in a few minutes from now, before we also have a panel discussion later in the session. For now, I simply want to again reiterate the vision of this webinar to celebrate belief, celebrate vision for the developing world and energy access, and to celebrate action towards delivering jobs, growth, and sustainability for people in rural India and elsewhere. I now turn to my esteemed colleague, Abhishek Jain, who I would call the architect of powering livelihoods. Over to you, Akshay.
Thank you, Arunabha. Good afternoon and a warm welcome to all the dignitaries, friends and colleagues who have joined us from across the world. Powering livelihood is all about on-ground transformation. And we couldn't have a launch about the powering livelihoods without bringing in the on-ground voices into our conversation. In order to do so, we'll now play a 5-minute film so that we can weave in those perspectives from the ground and also give you a brief overview about powering livelihoods. For those who are joining us through their browsers or watching the session on YouTube or Twitter, due to the WebEx limitation, you may not be able to see the video in the session. Instead, please follow the link in the respective chat windows to watch the video on YouTube as we play it here, and we come back to the session in about 5 minutes. Can we have the video, please? When we did Access Report back in 2015, the energy access landscape in India was very different. The report brought the stark on-ground realities to the forefront, calling for an immediate action by the policymakers. In subsequent years, we have seen amazing progress on the household electrification front as well as on the quality of supply front. As we achieve 100% household electrification, we also need to ensure that the economic activity in rural India is not getting constrained due to lack of electricity. More than 4 million microenterprises in rural India mention unreliable electricity as the biggest bottleneck to their business.
I was in villages of Jharkhand. That's when I was first exposed to the working conditions of rural silk reelers. These were women who would reel tussar yarn on their thighs. It's a very painful process and also mentally demeaning. They were left with scars on their skin and backaches for their whole lifetime. So that made me realize that this had to change. It could not go on like this. So I started working on making a machine to do this work.
All these gaps in rural energy access for economic activity can be addressed by energy efficient and decentralized renewables powered livelihood solutions. In fact, at CEW, we estimate a market potential of more than $50 billion for these solutions.
इस मशीन से लोग जो है ना अपने इनकम को कई गुना ज़्यादा बढ़ा सकते हैं, और जिन इलाकों में बिजली नहीं है तो उन इलाकों में भी हम इसको आराम से वहाँ पर सोलर पैनल की वजह से चला सकते हैं। आपको जितनी मशीनों की डिमांड है उतनी मशीनें हम लोगों को समय पर नहीं दे पा रहे हैं, तो उसके लिए जरूरत थी फंडिंग की।
While the market opportunity for decentralized renewables for livelihoods is big, it's a difficult one to realize. The sector is at very early stages, and the enterprises who are manufacturing or selling these solutions are struggling to scale up. Powering Livelihoods is addressing this challenge by providing significant capital as well as capacity building support to such enterprises. As the enterprises deploy these solutions not in tens but in thousands, Powering Livelihood is trying to generate evidence whether these solutions work, whether they are able to improve the income of the end user, whether the end user is able to pay back for these solutions, and whether the enterprise operation itself is commercially viable and scalable. We disseminate this evidence and engage with financiers, investors, policymakers, so that we can not just only unlock the support for these select enterprises, but also for the sector as a whole. The Council is not in the business of growing enterprises, rather, we grow sectors. We needed a partner who shared our vision for a clean energy based, thriving rural economy. And who better than the oldest and largest social enterprise incubator in India, Villgro.
Over the last 20 years, more than 300 startups have passed through our portals. We have taken a lot of pains to select the right enterprises to be part of the Powering Livelihoods program. We were looking for companies with the hunger and the ambition to scale, to achieve much greater heights. And most importantly, we wanted companies that were impact focused, that were not doing what they did purely for the money or the commercial aspect, but people who really wanted to make an impact on society.
We need to hit the sweet spot of sustainability, affordability, and performance to be able to appeal to the rural customers. Powering Livelihood will give us the required support so we can achieve our goals.
हम लोग का खेती अच्छा से हुआ नहीं, तो हम लोग तेसर का काम से ही मतलब काम चलाते भी है, घर परिवार भी चलता है, हम लोग का बच्चा सबकी मेंटेनेंस होता है, कुछ बैंक में भी पैसा रखते हैं.
The difference between Nirbhar and Atmanirbhar is that of a mindset. A small mindset change that can bring about a transformation. Powering Livelihoods is about to bring such a transformation to rural India. Imagine wearing clothes that are manufactured fully using renewable energy, from yarn to fabric to stitching. Imagine growing fresh green fodder for cattle using only solar power and water other than seeds. Imagine running a cold storage on the farm with the waste biomass that the farm itself is generating. All these are not ideas. This is the reality made possible by India's innovators and entrepreneurs. And now it gives me immense pleasure to introduce you to all the 6 enterprises which are part of the Powering Livelihood cohort. We start with the first enterprise, which is Greenwear. Abhishek, the founder, is passionate about sustainable clothing. Greenwear is already working with hundreds of women using solar charkhas, solar looms, and solar sewing machines to manufacture sustainable clothing. In fact, during the COVID pandemic, they have already started responding by supplying more than 400,000 masks to the Uttar Pradesh government. Next we look at Khetworks. Khetworks is a story about Katie and Victor, graduates from MIT, who directly plunged to start an entrepreneurship journey. For the last 4 years, they've been working with the small and marginal farmers of Jharkhand to design energy efficient and cost effective micro solar pumps, which can actually transform lives for millions of small farmers in India. Next, we have Kisan Dharmveer Private Limited. Kisan Dharmveer was once used to be a rickshaw puller in Delhi. And his story is, personally to me, is one of the most inspiring. He has innovated a machine which single-handedly can create juices, pulps, essential oils, jams, squashes, and whatnot. And that machine has already started transforming lives of more than 500 men and women across the country. Fourth, we have in the list hydrogreens. Vasant Kumar, who started hydrogreens, realized that there is a significant gap between the supply and demand of green fodder, fresh green fodder in the country, so particularly in a few months of the year. And since then, he has been inventing and innovating and starting selling these vertical stations where you can grow fodder only on back of solar power and water and just the input of seeds. Next in the list, we have Devidiyal Solutions. Tushar is an investment banker who has now turned into entrepreneurship. He didn't want to solve the problems for the top 5%, but rather wanted to solve the problems for the bottom 50%. With highly energy efficient and DC powered solar refrigerators and deep freezers, they are transforming lives of various retailers, dairy operators, and healthcare workers across the country. Finally, we have Resham Sutra. As you already heard from Kunal, the plight of the woman doing thigh reeling inspired him to be the entrepreneur. And as a result, he has already deployed more than 11,000 machines which are solar powered and are helping the silk and the cotton value chain in the country. Now, while for enterprises like Greenware and Resham Sutra, the beneficiaries are primarily women. But we wanted to make sure that this should not be the case only with a few enterprises. And hence, in the program, we have an explicit focus on enhancing women participation in the energy and livelihood value chain. And we are providing explicit support to that end. In addition to these 6 enterprises, we also have 11 enterprises which are representing the largest sector, because ultimately powering livelihood is not about moving a few enterprises, but moving the entire sector along with us forward. And I must say that what we're trying to do is in many ways unprecedented, and hence it involves a significant risk. And we're extremely thankful to our donors and partners who have embraced this risk along with us. Finally, I must acknowledge and take a moment to actually feel gratitude towards not just the team which has helped us build this entire initiative, but also the entire sector who has supported us with multiple deliberations, inputs, thinking, and thought in order to shape this particular initiative, which we hope will bring about the real transformation of the rural economy on back of clean energy. And with that, I would now request Shri Amitesh Sinhaji from the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy to start with, to kindly address the audience with his opening remarks.
Honorable Vice Chairman NITI Aayog and other esteemed dignitaries. Decentralized RE-based livelihood solutions are available in number of ways, and they are growing as per their own pace. There is no solid support, or there is no program structured to support such kind of things. MNRE is running various programs of its solutions for promotion of such kind of livelihoods in field of biogas, small off-grid plants, street lights, study lamps, solar thermal solutions like solar dryer, solar cold storage, bulk milk chillers. But these efforts are not much. And the organized way which is required for pushing this sector is not there. So I consider this as the unorganized sector of renewable energy which needs greater attention. With local efforts and in many cases without the government support, various innovative solutions have come up and they are powering the livelihood of rural areas. Government has tried for providing universal access to electricity, but we all know that the quality of electricity or availability of electricity 24-hour is not there, which is required for a livelihood. If any entrepreneur is considering such kind of decentralized solution, then it has to be, it must have a reliable power source. And there the solar energy or renewable energy plays an important role. Efforts of CEEW in promotion of niche RE products is commendable. And the recent efforts in collaboration with Villgro will go a long way in bridging the gaps in distributed livelihood area. Just they have shown that they are providing financial and technical support to entrepreneurs, and they have selected 6 different entrepreneurs from the field of textile, food processing, micro solar pumps, refrigerator and deep freezer, and fodder growing station. So these entrepreneurs will be supported by CEEW, and potential of job creation with the help of them is almost 10 lakh livelihoods. So there is immense potential in this particular field, and I hope that many more financial institutions will come and support many such organizations like CEEW, and this will finally become a movement and will give support to many more livelihoods in our country. MNR is also trying to organize this unorganized sector of renewable energy, and we have started a discussion paper. Very soon we will go for a stakeholders consultation. Our aim is to converge all the schemes of different ministries, because different ministries are providing support to different kind of products in their field. And our aim is to converge all these schemes. We will try to standardize all renewable energy products, which is already there for agriculture sector or rural areas or MSME, textile, food processing or tribal affairs. There are various products already there, and different ministries are providing support in form of subsidy or incentive. So we will try to collect information about all solar products which are available in different ministries of sectors, and we will try to converge them. Here we want to organize and provide technical assistance for demand aggregation and providing solution to such kind of entrepreneurs. Then we will involve our state nodal NC and implementing NC once the structure is ready. We will also go for pilot studies, public awareness and information, and we'll try to tie up finance also for supporting such kind of initiative. Skill development is very important for such kind of livelihood missions, and we will also target that. So this is going to give a great boost to MSME sector, I think, and it will cover almost. We are covering almost 10 to 12 sectors, whether it is cold storage, refrigeration, drying, rice milling, horticulture, irrigation, textile, or a bioenergy sector. So we will try to come out with some kind of support in the form of a scheme or in the form of a program, and we'll push this further. I hope that with the efforts of CWE, other NGOs, other financial institutions, and civil society, I think this movement will grow, and ultimately many lives will be benefited from this. And this distributed RE livelihood solution will really help making India truly Atmanirbhar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sinha, for your encouraging words, and I hope we can fulfill the vision that you've outlined. Now it gives me great pleasure to invite Dr. Rajiv Kumar, Vice Chairman of NITI Aayog, to deliver the keynote address for the launch of Powering Livelihoods. Dr. Kumar.
Thank you, Arunava. Your Excellency, Ms. Ogunbiyi, Shri Ramadurai, Mr. Higgins, Ms. Jhabwala, Dr. Hon'ble, and other dignitaries and friends, and the CEEW team. Especially to you, congratulations for this very big milestone of reaching the 10th year successfully. I know how difficult it is to run a successful think tank, having run one in the private sector before this, and now running one in the government, the government think tank. I know how difficult it is to make oneself relevant and to keep up the energies and the momentum. And I must congratulate you once more for doing so well. 273 projects is no mean feat, and all the very best for the next decade. I hope to see you doubling your staff strength, at least, if not tripling it. 90 is itself a good number. And also, well done on the partnerships and collaborations. And the best of luck also to your partner in this project, Villgro. I'm sure this will really go a long way. And I must confess that I commend you from converting yourself, or at least moving towards from being a think tank to an action tank, because there are not many of us who are able to do that. The particular project that you have, where a think tank like yours is raising up to $3 million, that's nearly 20 crore rupees, to help commercialize and scale up startup enterprises, 6 of them together, I think is a remarkable feat, and I think it's something that should be set a benchmark to other think tanks as to how to combine theory with practice, because that's really where it matters. Because unless and this is an old tradition to say that theory with praxis leads to change. Neither of them alone makes for change, and certainly not for transformation. And this is what we do in NITI Aayog. We think of ideas and then we put them into the line ministries for them to be able to execute it. So well done again on this. And I think this is something that, and you've chosen a very good field. You've chosen an amazingly good field, which is clean energy, and clean energy to the micro entrepreneurs in the rural, in the villages, in the rural countryside. And I noticed that it's there are more than 30 million, 3.5 crore micro entrepreneurs out there in the in the countryside, and all of them are your potential partners who can benefit from this. And these are the people who have huge growth potentials, and they suffer because of the cost disparities, because of the higher costs, because the energy that they get access to is very often high cost, is not of good quality, is not reliable, and therefore they are constrained in being able to scale and grow and then compete with the rest. And the credit, access to credit is not so forthcoming, and the market information. And I think this is a very good beginning that you will do to, in some sense, address one of their major constraints for growth. And $50 billion opportunity, it should attract not just your 6 + 15, but hopefully even more enterprises as you go forward. I think this is so, and therefore I should congratulate you, and also say how good it is to notice that there are donors in this world who will back a innovative idea like this, who will back a good venture like this. So all the foundations that you've mentioned, I know, are leaders in their own fields and are people who think innovatively. So this coming together of donors and think tanks and the entrepreneurs is a new beginning in some sense. And I notice also that the department, Ministry of Renewable Resource Energy, has joined in. So I think that's the coalition that we want for transformation. That's the coalition that we want for transformation, because that's the coalition that will convert a topic like clean energy, to which the Prime Minister is so heavily committed, into a mass movement, into a Jan Andolan, as he repeats very often. And unless we do that, of course, we know that this will not achieve the objective that it will. So I hope CEEW is successful in doing this, because we need more and more examples of Jan Andolan for transformation. because a legalistic approach, an official approach, an approach just led by or only supported by the government at any level will not suffice. What has to be done is to involve the people on the ground, is to involve the economic agents on the ground, and which is what these 34 million micro entrepreneurs are. And I'm sure once they see the benefits accruing to them, which they must, and as you've shown already, I'm very impressed with the 6 enterprises having already done sufficient scale up. I mean, 18,000 consumers and employees, and supplying 400,000 reusable masks, etc. is something which shows that they are already they're not into that TRL 3-4 stage. They're way there. The proof of concept has already been done. And now what you're going to help them to do is to scale up. And once that happens, the examples are there for others to follow. And you will be surprised, and all of us will be surprised as to how quickly this catches on. Because, as they say in Sanskrit, pratyaksham kim pramanam. Once you see this in your own eyes, nobody needs further proof. So that's what's going to happen in this case. So I'm pleased to be associated with this venture, and I again wish you all the very best. Now, a couple of other things, which is that and all of us know that, and the Prime Minister has repeated it more often, that we are committed to an Atmanirbhar Bharat, a self-reliant Bharat, a self-reliant India. And this will surely, contribute to this because, decentralized renewable energies, that's what you're going to promote, will make sure that our needs of fossil fuel are reduced. Therefore, our import needs, our import requirements are also go down. We can generate we are the leaders in solar power, and have led the Solar Alliance from the front, and the Prime Minister's vision of one sun, one globe, one grid will of course come by one of these days. So I think your contribution to Atmanirbhar Bharat is only beginning, but will get increasingly important as you go forward, as more and more micro entrepreneurs join, and as you can give more off-grid renewable power to all those people who are there. We also know that we are committed, the government is committed very strongly to eliminating dualism from our economy. And this dualism, which marks the dualism between urban and rural, sheher or dehat, and there are several other dualisms that abound in our society. This government is strongly committed to eliminating these. And if you notice, in the last 6 years, while Pura, provision of urban facilities to rural areas may not yet be there, but under the leadership of the Prime Minister, what we've done is that all villages are now connected to the electricity, are electrified. So that one thing, his announcement on the 15th of August, that in the next 1,000 days, every village would get broadband connectivity, the expansion of the rural roads that you've got, the provision of toilets in every village, in every household that you've got, which is the same at the same level in which you have in our urban centers. The provision of the whole program, for which I think 5 lakh crore rupees have been allocated to have running tap water in every house, across India. I think all of those are, and then the Saubhagya scheme to give to the women, smokeless cooking facilities. All of those are directed towards reducing and eliminating the dualism between rural and urban India, because that's the key. That's the key to give the people a choice as to where they would like to stay, and also that's the key to make sure that rural incomes also rise to the same level as that of the urban level. At the moment, there is a huge difference, we know, and again here, your effort, I must say, will contribute to that, to removing that dualism. Because if you get these micro enterprises going and running on renewable energy, it will help convert the rural landscape into an industrial landscape. And give to everybody who's listening the amazing example of the company called Zoho, whose proprietor is one Mr. Wembu, who is now come back from Silicon Valley. It's $1.5 billion enterprise based out of Chennai, but now he has moved to Madurai, into the villages next to Madurai. He has 400 engineers living in those villages, working from home and getting broadband connectivity and working globally and having global partners. And Mr. Wembu's remarkable contribution is worth anybody to see, and I've been lucky to have been introduced to him. I think that's the route that we are taking through your initiative, and I hope, therefore, that we can, we can go forward in a bigger way. Finally, friends, I must say that NITI Aayog's principal mandate, one of the principal mandates, is innovation, and this is why I particularly like what you're doing, because you know that we have within NITI Aayog an organization called the Atal Innovation Mission, AIM, one of its kind. In the last 4 years of its existence, Atal Innovation Mission has already established 8,000 tinkering labs in secondary schools across the country, 50% of which are in government schools. And this is where children in the age of 9 to 15 are exposed to the frontiers of new technologies, whether it's optical sensors or it's 3D printing and so on. And we have established and funded 100 incubation centers. And now Atal AIM is about to be helping the small and medium enterprises to move from TRL 3 to TRL 8 with the help of the line ministries. So I think I'm saying this simply again because without innovation, which is different from Jugaad, India will not be able to transform itself. And I think to that extent, what I've just seen of the 6 enterprises gives me great hope that the innovation culture is catching on. And the innovation culture is finding supporters, not only from within our midst, but also from abroad, as represented by all the donors that you've gathered enough. So I think several things to be looking forward to. Once more, well done and congratulations and all the very best for this venture. And I will keep myself posted on how you progress. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kumar. Those are very encouraging words. We will make sure that we keep you posted because for you to be present here and kick us off is hugely inspirational for us. We know how much through our other work and partnership with NITI Aayog, we know how much you are particularly interested in what's happening in the rural areas, whether it's natural farming, whether it is entrepreneurship. But this point that you just made about ending dualism is, I think, a mantra that we have to kind of truly pursue. One of our esteemed board members is Dr. Anil Kakotkar, and he has been proposing this idea of a sillage for how we can transform rural areas to again have the vibrancy of what we find in our cities. And of course, we'll hear from our other esteemed board member, Mr. Ramadurai, in a few minutes. So thank you once again for giving your time and allowing us to brief you about this. And most importantly, I hope that the 6 enterprises can, in the next round, we can have 60 enterprises and more to create that critical mass towards Atmanirbhar Bharat. Thank you very much, Dr. Kumar. We have heard from Dr. Rajiv Kumar, and we've also heard from Minister Piyush Goyal's office that he is still in the group of ministers meeting, but he will join as soon as he can. So what we'll do is we'll move forward with the panel discussion as planned, and then Minister Goyal will join us the moment his other meeting ends. Abhishek, over to you first.
Thank you, Arunabha. Now it gives me immense pleasure to invite all the panelists into the panel discussion. Let me start with none other than our own trustee, one of our own trustee, Mr. S. Ramadurai, who has been the vice chairman of TCS Group. I see some echo. Okay, all right.
I'm here. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I think there is some echo in the system. Sorry about that. He is currently also the chairman of the advisory board of Tata Strive and has been in the public service between 2011 and 2016 in the area of skill development, as he was heading National Skill Development Corporation as well as National Skill Development Agency. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Per Hegnes, who is the CEO of the IKEA Foundation. As the CEO, Mr. Hegnes sets and drives the foundation's funding as well as innovation strategies, and is a tireless advocate for children living in some of the world's poorest economies. He also serves on the advisory board of the Refugee Studies Center at University of Oxford. We're glad to have you, Mr. Hegnes. Next, I would like to invite Ms. Rinana Jhabwala, who is the president of Seva Bharat. Ms. Jhabwala has been working with Self-Employed Women Association Seva since 1977. She's also serving right now executive trainee of Mahila Housing Trust, and she serves on the United Nations High-Level Panel on Women's Economic Empowerment. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Jhabwala. Next, we have Dr. Harish Hon'ble, who is currently the CEO of Selco Foundation. Dr. Hon'ble is the co-founder of Selco Private Limited, and has been working in has been one of the pioneers in the space of decentralized renewable energy to solve challenges for the deprived communities. Finally, I would like to invite Mr. Srinivas Ramanujan, who is the CEO of Villgro. Mr. Srinivas brings in more than 2 decades of experience in sales, marketing, brand management, strategy across various roles in various sectors. At Villgro, he has been spearheading the effort after taking the baton from the last CEO a few months ago. And prior to Villgro, he has worked with Mahindra and Mahindra and various other corporates as an entrepreneur. With that, I will now hand over to Arunabha to start the panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Abhishek, for the introductions. And of course, we have, as I introduced right at the outset, Her Excellency Ms. Damilola Ogunbiyi, the CEO of Sustainable Energy for All, and the United Nations Secretary General Special Representative for Sustainable Energy for All. Damilola, I think you're facing a little bit of internet bandwidth issues. So if you can, when that is resolved, we can switch on your video. But if you can hear us, I will turn first to you with my first question. Damilola, can you hear us? So Damilola, you heard?
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
My first question is: you've seen what we are trying to do here in India, the huge opportunity that there is, and people like Dr. Harish Hon'ble will tell all of us more about the millions of such potential entrepreneurs that exist and need that leg up to deliver services, energy services for productive practices on the ground. But I wanted to start with a slightly larger question. Seeing what's happening here, with the passion that I've heard you speak on multiple occasions, the passion that you demonstrate on delivering energy access, especially the use of distributed energy in other parts of the world as well. What do you see as the role of clean energy-based productive appliances in unlocking economic potential in the global south?
Thank you for having me and congratulations on your tenure. I think trying and these are obviously coming from Africa, we're really looking to what is happening now to also take self-collaboration. I be rural electrification agency, so I know firsthand services as part of the and solutions we provide, and you just to households, you will get the community, but there wouldn't be the economic growth story that we're trying to strive for. The other thing that I like about this, having women as part of the discussion. Women are not just as beneficiaries, but they should be the owners of a lot of these solutions. Because again, the data shows that a woman-driven enterprise is more likely to be successful in these communities. So for me, I'm just really excited that good think tanks like yourself, CEEW, and the likes of Selco are working on this, and SE4 is really passionate, but working with both of you, not just in terms of the Indian example, but taking a lot of these learnings and trying to make global entrepreneurs also in Africa and also countries that need it. Back to you.
So thank you, Damilola. Let me turn to Mr. Heganes. Mr. Heganes, the IKEA Foundation. IKEA Foundation has been deeply invested in improving people's lives. You have a particularly important focus on renewable energy. But you yourself are also extremely passionate about vulnerable communities, refugee communities, etc. When you see these kinds of systems being deployed in fairly stressed areas and regions, what do you see as the role of such solutions to drive productive enterprises amongst more vulnerable communities and increase their resilience?
Arunava, thank you for having me, and we are of course proud to be one of your partners and be part of this very exciting venture. I mean, as a foundations, we're really convinced that productive appliances powered by renewable energy access across sectors of agriculture, dairy, textiles, and food processing have a great role in improving productivity, but also therefore a great role in improving the incomes of families living in rural areas. So we're really excited about how also the government of India is seeing the potential in renewable energy solutions, and we're excited about their intent of rapidly scaling deployment of solar water pumps to reach up to almost 2 million farmers, which is quite impressive. And I think post-COVID, we're building rural livelihoods has become even more important, and distributed renewable energy can play a significant role in providing reliable energy to people living in really marginal areas. And those are the areas where IKEA Foundation is usually actively engaged. We're also excited to see how the government of India has expressed an intent to strengthen infrastructure by investing close to, I think, $1 trillion as a part of a COVID relief assistance. That's a good way of using relief assistance to create sustainable solutions. And this money is meant to finance the setting up of cold chain and storage infrastructure and establishing post-harvest management infrastructure. So increasingly, it's a great interest across the board for driving these types of solutions. So in recent times, we've seen many innovative companies offering cold storage and processing solutions for farmers that are powered by renewable energy, right? And now is the right time to really encourage such companies to penetrate deeper into the rural markets where the real needs are. And renewable energy companies require financial support. And since it's still early days, many business models are yet emerging, and more data and evidence around that works needs to be collected, and best practices should be shared widely to drive more scale.
So that's a great segue to, I wanted to bring in Mr. Ramadorai. Mr. Ramadorai, can you hear us still?
I can hear you.
Great. So, Mr. Ramadorai, we've been, within CEEW, we've been talking to you and the rest of the board about this opportunity for some time. Villgro is the country's oldest and largest social enterprise incubator. So we've partnered. You've seen all the donors that have come together. Ministry of Renewable Energy offering their support, but no one understands scale better than you. You have taken enterprises to a scale that even if 1,000 such rural enterprises could achieve, we would have transformed rural India. So a very simple, blunt question: seeing the potential, seeing the technology, but also being aware of skills gaps, financial stresses, etc. What would be your advice to the program, but also to startup entrepreneurs like the 6 that we have chosen to scale? What should they watch out for? What should they do to go from where they are to a very different level? I think you're on mute, Mr. Ramadharan. Yes, and we'll hear from you. And
to participate in the launch of the great initiative, thanks to the support of all the people that are part of this initiative. Entrepreneurs, organizations which have supported, whether it is Greenware, Ketwar, Hon'ble, Hydro Greens, they will solutions or rations. Advocacy and make forum is the starting point, which gives recognition to every single rural enterprise. What they stand for, what their overall vision is, and what do they achieve in terms of making impact to the rural livelihoods. For lack of anything larger, the focus must not be lost sight of, and that's the first advice I would give. And absolutely razor sharp focus, measure, and that's not deviate that because somebody says something else is more remunerative, or it may fetch more income to the farmer or anybody we want touching. I think that's the first advice. Second thing is any technology operate, more importantly, the rural energy focus or the renewable focus, proof of concept, demonstrating the proof of concept, real life examples and stories must. The people who are funding, the people who are putting good money for addressing a problem, visit locations where the action is there instead of in a boardroom. So the second advice is make sure the people that you are impacting are seen by the people who are funding, so that the real life stories come out and they carry back the message for further, which means for the further level of scale. So advice, demonstration, proof of concept, storytelling, and creating a technology platform for common good, where the solutions, the technologies, the entrepreneurs, and the people who we are touching have market forces, including so a knowledge database, knowledge bank, and a platform for that becomes very possible today because of the connectivity, communications, energy, access, affordability, all of them can be demonstrated through the platform. So keep creating, fund more and more, or more people fund more and more across the country. A knowledge bank with the support of the Ministry of Rural Energy or any other ministries, and the state governments will take it places in terms of the scale up. Right. Scale up happens automatically when people know there is good work being done, good impact being created, but more importantly, it works. It has to work, and it has to work in the eyes of the customer, namely the rural livelihoods whom we have touched. That's the way I will answer this question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramadharan. And I can see that Minister Piyush Goyal has joined us. So I'm just going to briefly interrupt the panel discussion and come to you. So I have, of course, formally introduced you, but it gives me great pleasure to introduce and welcome you once again, Minister Piyush Goyal, Honorable Minister in the Government of India for Commerce and Industry and for Railways. But ladies and gentlemen, let me take this minute to take us back 5 years when Minister Goyal encountered CEEW for the first time. And we had just published at that time, as I mentioned earlier, the largest survey, the results from the largest survey on energy access. And, as think tanks, as research institutions, we're always a little concerned, how will government take independent, inputs? And we were so encouraged when Minister Goyal took the good and the bad and the ugly of what the survey revealed and continued to drive the big push at that time in his role as the Minister for Power and Renewable Energy for increased energy access. Fast forward 5 years, Minister Goyal, CEEW is now a 10-year-old institution. We have partnered with the country's oldest social enterprise incubator to create powering livelihoods. And just to summarize, this program is a $3 million program, 22 crore, to support rural enterprises that are using clean energy to power up other productive enterprises in rural India. So from entrepreneur to micro entrepreneurs to scale is the theory of change that we are following for Atmanirbhar Bharat and a self-reliant India. We couldn't have thought of anyone better than you to give the inaugural address. Startup India is also one of your responsibilities, but you also know how to take things at scale. The 6 enterprises, Minister Goyal, are diverse. Some are using clean energy for solar-powered silk yarn production. Some are using clean energy for food processing, for submersible solar pumps, for creating an efficient, water-efficient way to create green fodder and other agricultural produce, to produce textiles and garments using renewable energy, or providing DC-based fans and solar refrigerators potentially, which could be used in primary health centers to store vaccines. So this is the range of enterprises that we are trying to help scale up. But we want to hear from you about what your vision would be, not just for India, but for the world, to use clean energy to drive productive enterprises in the rural communities. We had Dr. Rajiv Kumar just address us a few minutes ago, and we also have the UN Secretary General Special Representative and CEO of Sustainable Energy for All, Her Excellency Ms. Damilola Ogunbiyi. Along with them, we have Mr. Ramadorai, who you just heard from, our esteemed board member, Mr. Per Hegenes, from IKEA Foundation, Dr. Hari Shande, and others. So let me once again warmly welcome you, Minister Goyal. Thank you for always encouraging us, but we look forward to getting your guidance and your vision for this program. You're on mute, sir.
Thank you very much, Arunabh, and my compliments to the Center to the Council of Energy, Environment and Water, the CEEW, for completing a decade of public service. In fact, I've had many occasions to interact with you, but I think this would be one of the happiest days for me to see how your organization has matured to a very fine think tank, coming up with some very practical, pragmatic solutions as India transitions to a world superpower, but also a country which recognizes and respects clean energy as the driver of that growth. In fact, we have heard the Prime Minister articulate his respect for nature on several occasions. And respect for nature is not something which has to be thrust upon India or Indians. It comes naturally to us. It's a part of our culture, a part of our tradition. Many of us in this call also probably pray to the wind god and the sun god, to nature in its different forms, because we recognize, and this has been passed down generations, we recognize that nature gives us a lot of resource and strength, but we need to respect and protect that nature, and in fact, further the development of clean and good environments around us. And I think your organization is playing a very, very important role in the efforts of the nation as we move towards clean energy, as we move towards sustainable forms of development, which includes renewable energy in a big way. And I'm sure you will continue to serve in the days and years going forward. You have also been a part of several of my own efforts when I was in MNRE, particularly the big rollout of LEDs. You saw how transformational that journey was without a single rupee investment by the government. So we actually succeeded in changing the mindset of the nation from a subsidy-driven program orientation to an economies of scale, high quality, and cost benefit kind of model, which helped India scale up the program and also helped India save millions and millions of tons of carbon, which would otherwise have gone into the environment through larger consumption of electricity, particularly during the peak loads, which is of greatest concern to the nation. We have also, under the inspirational leadership of Prime Minister Modi, been able to scale up our ambition for renewable energy. And I think now we are not even looking at 175 gigawatts, we are looking far beyond. Obviously, solar energy by 2022, the 100 gigawatt mission remains. But going forward up to 2030, the Prime Minister has already articulated his vision to scale it up to 450 gigawatts. Prime Minister also spoke about one world, one grid. And I think that's the future. I don't know if you recall Tony Seba's comments, where he had once prophesied that very soon power would be at zero cost. And possibly when you go to the supermarket and buy something, instead of giving you a cashback or instead of giving you a discount, they may possibly give you an electricity voucher. That because you purchased 6,000 rupees worth of goods, you get 60 units of electricity free of charge. That's the kind of world he envisioned when he's talking of the future. And our own transparent auctions to scale, whether it was solar power, whether it was wind power, obviously in LED where we brought down prices by nearly 85%, the world saw that impact of scale. But also in solar power, we are down to probably 3.25 cents now, to under 2.5 rupees per kilowatt hour. Wind power is not much different. So I think there was a lot of resistance initially, but now all the stakeholders have realized that that is the reality and that is achievable. And I'm glad to see that the country is making rapid strides in using clean and renewable energy. And this particular partnership that you have finalized with this venture financing company, the Powering Livelihoods initiative with Villgro, I'm sure will go a long way in bringing out innovative solutions. We don't expect you to actually focus on the implementation of the last mile. I hope you will use this $3 million initiative to give us value addition and inputs to industry and to the government to see how clean energy and energy access, and we've actually taken energy access to all the households in the country today. We have sufficient power to have 24/7 power for all. If only people would pay for it honestly and we could improve the workings of the discoms, we can actually give 24 hours power to everybody, including industry at affordable prices. I would wish that your initiative should look at leveraging modern technology and see how we can power livelihoods at the village level through scale, through engaging skilled people, through skilling initiatives. I don't know if you recall that IIT Mumbai professor's project where he was providing solar lamps, which are actually made by the women in the villages and being sold at concessional prices to school children. I don't immediately recall the name, but I remember we had initially done few and then we had scaled it up to 1 million lamps.
Yeah.
That can be taken to much larger levels and beyond solar lamps. It could go to the Kusum scheme, for example, and help the farmers actually start sourcing components rather than finished panels and creating the panel at the village level, which would power not only the farms, which would not only bring clean energy into our grid in a bigger way, which would not only help double the farmers' incomes, but also provide many, many young boys and girls livelihoods in the making of the panels or cells or modules or assembling them at the local level, saving a lot of logistics costs, saving a lot of damage in transit, saving a lot of pollution when these are transported through trucks or trains. So look at the multi-dimensional impact that powering livelihoods at the village level can have. And Atmanirbhar Bharat is all about that. The Prime Minister's vision is all about going local in our villages. And as he rightly articulated, be vocal for local and let local go global. And I think that's where I think your own initiative with Villgro can help give us ideas. It should be an ideas factory, just like all the books behind you. Make this the ideas factory to see how India gets a leadership role in the global renewable power initiatives and how our villages also connect with this futuristic program that you have initiated. I commend CEW and Villgro and wish you all the very best as you develop this program further. Invest your time, knowledge, resources, help young Indian startups, become the connect between our startup ecosystem, the venture financiers, and the government. And I'm sure this triangulation of all three can really speed up the process of technology absorption and innovations coming into the ecosystem, into the renewable energy ecosystem. In fact, there are many sectors, cold storages, small textile power looms. We, in fact, in the railways, have a mission to be 100% electrified by December 2023. The first railway of this scale in the world, which will be diesel-free, 100% electric driven. And as a second step, and we've already started work on it, by 2030, we will be a net zero railway. Our carbon emission will be zero across Indian railways. The world's first railway of this scale, transporting nearly 8 billion passengers every year, transporting today 1.2 billion tons of freight, hoping to go up to 2 billion tons in the next 5 years. It will be the world's first large railway of this dimension with zero carbon emission. We plan to use a lot of our surplus land and the land along the tracks to generate 20 gigawatt of made in India solar equipment or wind equipment being used to give us 20 gigawatt production capacity of renewable energy and enough kilowatt hours to power our entire railway, albeit we may need to either expand our battery storage or other forms of storage if you can bring the cost down through your innovations, or use banking, which is difficult, looking at the state of the discoms. So I would urge you to look at storage systems also and make that a viable proposition so that at least in the peak hours, banking is not required. that will be a big leg up to the growth of renewable energy in the days and years to come. If only we can ensure at least the peak hours of morning and evening are taken care of by storage. In the night, we have sufficient power. Even state discoms won't mind banking for supply in the night. But it's the peak hour where they are stressed and would hate to do banking. And we should be practical about it. So help us develop storage solutions around that. Help us develop viable cold storage solutions with the interconnect and interplay of renewable energy. That will give them sustainable business models at an energy price, which is the main cost, which can be fixed for 25 years. And their business model can then become viable. Similarly, water is something very dear to Prime Minister. By 2024, we want to make sure water goes to every home through a tap. But that home will also need to have pure water. So RO plants are going to become the flavor of the future. Can we connect that with renewable energy and determine that people get clean drinking water or clean cooking water at affordable price? Our coastline has many areas which have water shortages. Straight case in point, Tamil Nadu. We will ultimately have to go for desalination plants in India in a big way going forward.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged benefit. Not only does it make water available, but clean water available. So can we look at clean energy powering our desal plants, bringing down the cost of water through desal and making it affordable for the large masses? And I would love to work on a mission which says by 2024, there will never be water transported on a water tanker. There will never be illness because of poor quality of water. Can CEW come out with a position paper with such a dramatic vision, which we can then present to the Honorable Prime Minister and see how we can work together? Again, the same triangle, think tank or our innovators and startups, industry to bring it to scale, and government. Let's bring this partnership in a bigger way, stronger way, in a more powerful way. You'll recall, Arunabh, our work in strengthening our transmission network to absorb these large volumes of renewable energy. I think you worked on that also. And that was the biggest challenge the world used to place before us. People used to scare us that transmission grid cannot take 100 gigawatt of solar or 175 gigawatt of renewable. But 34 gigawatt of power collapsed on the day we
on the 9 minutes past 9 initiative. Yes.
And our grid could take it because the Prime Minister knew and had the confidence that the work that the Ministry of Power has done to strengthen the national grid, if it can take such large volumes of renewable energy, which fluctuates pretty steeply suddenly, particularly wind and solar, and as it goes into dawn, as dawn comes in or dusk sets in. He had the courage of conviction and the confidence of the good work all of you had done, that POSCO had done, that Power Grid had done, that the states had done, that the power and renewable energy ministries had done, that he could give that challenge and it went without any incident. That's the power of collective work and thinking. And that's the courage of conviction and confidence that India needs to develop. That's the true spirit of Atmanirbhar Bharat. And I commend you for your good work. Let's continue to work together. Come to the railways, come to commerce. Let's do more work together with CEW. And you will always find, at least in me personally and my teams, a ready, willing support system to further encourage and expand your work. My best wishes to you for the next 10 years and beyond. Go for it, Aruna. Best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister Goyal. Very encouraging remarks. At the outset of this program, I said we had 3 objectives for the program: articulating belief, articulating a vision, and then showcasing the action. And a lot of what you have said is completely in line with that ambition. If I may just take a few seconds. Yes, sir.
Just 1 minute. I completely forgot. I wanted to start with an apology. We had a group of ministers going on, which is working on a larger agenda for Atmanirbhar Bharat and the future of India's economy. There was no way I could get out of that GOM. My sincerest apologies to you personally and to your entire program for the delay. I apologize, but my office will update me on whatever happened in my absence. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very gracious of you, Minister Goyal, to even offer an apology like that. None is required. The fact that you are here with us, you're sharing your time, and more importantly, your passion with us for this initiative, it means a lot. A lot of the things you mentioned, you mentioned cold storage. CEW, you would be pleased to know, is one of the agencies that worked on authoring the India Cooling Action Plan, the first country that has come out with such a plan, and cold storage is very much a part of it. You'll also be pleased to know that we are already in discussions with your colleagues in the Ministry of Railways to support your vision for 100% electrification, the switch over to bio toilets, and as well as the solarization. So we are going to be supporting you on that as well. But most importantly, I think this triangle that you showed, right? The innovators, the investors, and the government. We have been at CEW since the unfortunate pandemic began, have been saying, how can we solve for another triangle? The triangle of jobs, growth, and sustainability. And I think it is certainly possible that coming out of this pandemic, that a new self-reliant India can pursue millions of jobs with small enterprises using advanced technology, deliver new growth, additional growth, but also be sustainable at a local level, but also at a national level in the way you've articulated. So thank you again very much for sparing your time and sharing that vision.
I'm sorry, because I'm taking some liberties. I don't get time to meet you so often. Can you take up one project as a part of this initiative? I was just reading your presentation and the 6 subjects that you've taken up.
Yes.
Can you take up one which is very important and about which Prime Minister Modi himself is very keen? We need to develop a viable electric cooking system which does fast cooking. So far we have induction heating and electric cooking, but it takes very long.
Yes.
I'm sure today's housewife or today's fast pace of life doesn't allow us to indulge in 1 hour to make tea.
Slow cooking. It's the Akbar Birbal story.
Can we have fast cooking mechanisms through electric cooking? Replace cooking gas. That's an imported product, and that will be a big leg up for Atmanirbhar Bharat. It will save us billions of dollars, provide a huge domestic manufacturing potential to 280 million homes need cooking. If all of us can be converted to electric cooking, think of the scale, think of the potential, think of the savings in terms of carbon emissions, and ultimately, all of this can move to renewable energy.
Sure.
So if you don't mind, take this up.
I've taken down the notes, sir. We will work on it.
Thank you.
Thank you again for your time, Minister Goyal. Thank you very much.
Ramadurai ji, namaskar.
Let me come back. Thanks once again for your patience, members of the panel. And as you heard from Minister Goyal, there's certainly a lot of excitement behind what this initiative could be doing in rural areas. But this gives me a chance to bring in Dr. Harish Hon'ble. my introduction to distributed clean energy, to village enterprises, to entrepreneurship in a very different way from how we imagine entrepreneurs in the cities is thanks to Harish. Almost a decade ago, he enabled me to go around parts of rural Karnataka and elsewhere to see what these enterprises were up to, what meant entrepreneurship to be at that level. So, Harish, there are 4.3 million micro enterprises in India that identify lack of reliable electricity as the biggest bottleneck to their business. What do you see? You've had nearly 3 decades of heart and soul investment in this sector. What do you see as the pathway to scale the deployment of these livelihood-based solutions? What kind of, beyond the excitement around this, what are the real bottlenecks that we need to get rid of?
First of all, thanks, Arunabha. Congratulations on this 10 years journey. I'm shocked that you use doctor in front of my name because though I have it, but we've been friends over the years, and thanks for putting up this excellent panel and getting the ministers onto this board, because it's high time somebody needed to bring people and to realize the importance of livelihood, sustainable energy and development. I'm glad this is happening, Arunabha. To scale, see, better than a lot of people, Arunabha, that scale needs to happen if the fundamental processes or the pillars are scaled up, like financing, right? After sales, the financing and decentralized entrepreneurship, which is very critical. Today, we expect large, and like we've unfortunately taken saying the scale up is going to happen just like it has happened in the IT industry, like the Microsofts, the Googles, the T. Yeah. It's about, and India has been a country of kirana shops, the country of street vendors. And that's exactly what did not impact in 2008 when the financial crisis happened in the world, was our nature of decentralized business, decentralized financing, decentralized entrepreneurship using the root cities as well as the rural banks. I think that's very critical, Arunabha, that how do we create those financial models through these banks, the rural banks, the RRBs, the commercial banks who have presence in the rural areas, that how do we restructure mudra loans to make sure that X%, just like you have 40% for priority sector, that 5% of loans has to be given for livelihoods that are based on renewable energy. That will scale up. Just like agricultural financing got scaled up, Arunabha, this will also scale up. The agricultural revolution has to be replaced now by energy revolution. And I'm glad that you have excellent partners like Ike and Per is here, who's been instrumental in pushing. When IKEA Foundation came in, the whole concept of livelihoods, sustainable energy and development was in a very nascent space. Now is where I think people are paying attention to what needs to happen. So I think let's scale up those processes, Arunabha, and that will lead to SME sector benefiting.
Okay, I see that Ms. also joined. I know we were having some technical issues earlier. Let me bring you in, because earlier, I don't know, Renana, if you heard Abhishek's presentation where he was saying that the big focus of the program is also about not just women as beneficiaries, but women as some of the entrepreneurs that could be supported. When we think about entrepreneur, enterprise, or the ecosystem, what needs to change specifically so that more women can be at the forefront of driving such clean energy rural enterprises to scale? I think you're, yeah.
Thank you. And yes, I've been listening from the beginning. I was very interested in your whole program and what has been happening on the ground. As far as women are concerned, as you know, SEWA works with women in the informal sector. We've reached about 2 million women, or not reach, but they are our members. So if you take the whole family, that's about 10 million people. And what we find is that whatever needs to happen, and I'm glad Harish Bhai went before me, because they can only work, or they work best in a decentralized way. And of all these women who are our members, at least 60% are what we would call micro entrepreneurs or nano entrepreneurs. So they could be home-based, like stitching, embroidery, spinning, small machines like so on. Or of course, lots and lots of women are small farmers. That's the largest number. And even larger is women looking after livestock. And in all of these, many of them do not even use energy, but many of them are aspirants of using energy and making themselves more productive. And what we have found is that they're willing to adopt, and within their means, willing to pay, of course, within their means, for any type of energy that would increase their income, increase their productivity, and therefore increase their well-being. And what they're looking for is the right technology, the right price, and absolutely access to finance. I think Harish Bhai mentioned this, and access to finance really is key, but it's of course not the only thing, because the right technology also has to be there. What would really, I'd like to do a quick plug for just solar lights, because what we find is that solar lights or any kind of lighting, once solar lights come into the house, or better lighting comes into the home, or even into the place they're working, their productivity goes up. They start small micro enterprises. For example, we've seen many women start small shops when they have bright solar lights, start tuition classes. Home-based workers continue working late into the night. So I do think I've seen that there is a sort of slowdown on solar lights as electrical spreads. But if we can have the right technology, the right price, as I said, then I see solar lights as really spreading livelihoods for women. The other major thing is, just to give you an example, in the desert in Gujarat, we had solar pumps for salt producers. Correct. And these salt producers are only able to use the solar pumps, which are very expensive, 1.8 lakhs, because they were able to get loans from Seva Bank, and loans on condition they could repay. So what I think, I don't see that much potential for converting these micro entrepreneurs into small factories, or moving them so far up the supply chain, up the value chain. But what we do need to do is strengthen these micro entrepreneurs, increase their productivity with the right technology, the right spread, and the right financing. And I think financing is extremely important. And I'm sorry to say, but our nationalized banks or the private banks are not reaching out. We have thousands of cooperatives, finance cooperatives. We have, as Harish Bhai said, the RRBs. We do need to strengthen that for energy production.
Sure. Okay, we are. I'm going to take the liberty of being the convener to stretch this by about 10 minutes beyond our scheduled closure, because I want to have an opportunity to bring all of your voices once again back in with some more specific questions. The point about financing, I'm going to come back to that, Harish, in a bit. But first, I want to come back to you, Mr. Ramadorai. There was a little bit of technical problem when you were speaking earlier, but I think I noted down your comments pretty well. If I heard clearly, you said the entrepreneur needs to have a razor sharp focus on the customer and the lessons that are being learned and the stories have to be advocated widely. Now, one of the things I want to pick your brains on is about skills, because this is something, again, you know through and through. As I said, when Harish first introduced me to these rural entrepreneurs a decade ago, one of the problems is the entrepreneur was the engineer, was the CFO, was the marketing champion, everything all rolled in one. And you can't get scale unless you have people specialized and specialized to take things to scale. So on the skilling issue, how can, I mean, while we are supporting these 6 entrepreneurs with Powering Livelihoods, what would you recommend which is suited to the way rural economy functions so that these entrepreneurs and the many other micro entrepreneurs get the workforce needed to scale?
Excellent question, Arnaba. I think when we start as an entrepreneur and finances are at a difficult stretch or what you can get, I think you double up to do multiple activities like all of us did when we started our careers. So that is the starting point. You have to be an engineer, you have to be a doer, you have to be a finance person, you have to be a personnel guy, etc., etc. But then skilling and reskilling and looking for talent on a continuous basis who are going to be part of your ecosystem or part of your organization, either as a full-time employee or on a basis where on call you can get their access in a shared manner so that the costs are again distributed. That's the second part of the equation very clearly. I think the third one, as you go further down, is the empowerment for scale up, because you got to trust the people whom you have skilled, whom you have reskilled, and you shed faster than what you accumulate new. It can't be everything is concentrated at you in a very hierarchical manner with the result. Empowerment is just a word and not actually practiced on the ground. I think automatically things grow because everyone is focusing on the end customer. Everyone's knowledge on what she plays in the whole value chain becomes very clear. And that's the reinforcement that needs to be made, starting from the owner, the CEO and MD, or to the CFO or the head of personnel, chief innovation officer, etc. I think innovation plays a very critical role, and a grassroots innovation where you are close to the customer, how it flows back into the boardroom or into the CEO's desk is the other point one has to accept. It's not again a top-down saying that I will say something and everybody has to follow, even the customer wants it or it doesn't make sense to the customer. So I think these are the lessons for scale up. But skilling, learning through a digital and a is what is going to take this. And NEP was recently announced in July and discussed quite a bit, articulates these things very clearly. But the enablers are digital access to every village, access and affordability. Last but not the least, the work area CEEW is doing very, very well is the renewable energy access to electricity on demand like a tap, the water on a tap. I think these are the enablers which will make it happen. Critical infrastructure, which gives them the access to the market and building the talent and then relating to what the customer wants at the end of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Ramadurai. So now let me again bring Per back into the conversation. And my next set of questions will be related to finance, both to you and as well as to Renana and Harish. But as a philanthropic foundation, one of the world's largest, of course you have deep impact in the areas and in the geographies in which you're working. But philanthropic capital is also faces opportunity costs. What you invest between one geography and the next, or one sector and the next. What we're trying to do with Powering Livelihood is try to cover multiple sectors. There's the enabler of clean energy that Mr. Ramadurai was referring to, but the receiver is the rural enterprise, and the final beneficiary is the rural inhabitant. What your experience is the way to leverage philanthropic capital maximally towards achieving multiple objectives?
Can you hear me? Okay, great. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's, of course, true philanthropic capital is really scarce and limited. So it's really important to deploy it in a way that helps catalyze support for the renewable energy sector as a whole, and help different partners come together to create this infrastructure, this ecosystem that actually enables people in rural areas to buy access to renewable energy. And that requires a set of different partners working together, obviously. So, I mean, we're excited to also partner with the Sustainable Energy for All and Selco Foundation, who you have on the panel today, to work with us on this global renewable energy push. So I'm happy to see them on the panel. At the foundation, we're really looking at how we can deploy our resources meaningfully to help India and also countries in East Africa ramp up renewable energy infrastructure that builds livelihoods for people and open up opportunities for them. But we understand that, of course, much more money is required to encourage innovations around efficient appliances and supporting innovative business models. IKEA as a business had never been successful if it hadn't been able to think outside of the box, drive innovation, fail, and then learn from failure and drive innovation again. So we're really excited to support partners that are looking to actually push the envelope and take it to a different level and provide solutions that are available for the many people. So we see as demand for appliances powered by renewable energy needs to increase, of course, and people should be offered choices. And this should really be backed by adequate support for people to afford these products, because as we've heard, not everyone can afford it. So I think all of this calls for mobilizing resources in research and development, in promoting innovative business models, creating demand, and making risk capital. And we heard a lot about risk capital and support. But we need risk capital support and make it available for financial institutions to actually invest in this sector. So, you know, this relatively young sector requires more credible data and evidence around business models and the impact on end users and the environment, of course, which is really important to us. And we need all that to boost confidence in investors and bring more investors into the sector. We are confident that investment in this sector is a very good investments for the climate and good investments for the people who are able to benefit. But beyond resources, we do see a greater need to encourage collaboration among public and private academics and practitioners to actually move this forward. So we want to be part of it, but we need a lot of people to come together to make this happen.
Thank you, Per, and thanks again for your belief in, as I said, our first objective was belief. For a belief in what Powering Livelihoods is trying to do. But something that you said is my segue to the same question I have for both Harish and Renana. You know, from where I sit as an analyst, I keep hearing there's not enough evidence. There's not enough evidence of clean energy. There's not enough evidence of clean energy in distributed ways. There's not enough evidence that this will give returns in rural areas and so forth. And that is that information asymmetry is often touted as one of the reasons why cost of finance ends up being so high. And both of you have talked about access to finance. If such enterprises have to scale, my question to you is, are you seeing over the course of your own experience, some signs of a structural shift in the way we are thinking about distributed energy and decentralized economic systems to drive more resilient, sustainable communities? And if you're not seeing that yet, what has to change so that, you know, how many more reports do we have to write and how many more data points do we have to collect to make the case, or something else needs to happen? Maybe a couple of minutes to both of you, and then I want to turn to my colleagues in Villgro, Anant and Srinivas. Harish, maybe you first, and then Renana.
No, thanks, Aruna. No, I mean, it's not a question of reports, Aruna, but the question is, see, there's both sides of the equation, right? One is the people on the ground also take too much anecdotal stories rather than concrete, right? And that needs to change. That this guy got help, and that becomes a data point, which is not. I think we need to mature. But I also want to caution in the sense today what's happened is the missing point. I tell you, Arunabha, is when people talk about scale, the mentors who are good in talking about scale right now are good in retail scale of consumption, right? There are hardly very few mentors who know how to do scale, how to talk about scale for livelihood applications, which is very different than consumptive applications. Right. Scaling livelihood options is a very different ball game than scaling consumptive goods. And so, and how do you sell retail? You're selling here retail livelihoods, which is not like you sell a TV and that's over with you. You can scale it up, right? Finance. Scaling any of these livelihoods that you have shown requires customized financing, different management skills, market linkages. Those are processes that you just cannot sell a product and say, I'm going to scale. So I think taking on what Mr. Ramdurai said, if we can add to the skill sets of people in the future, how do you, many of these entrepreneurs that you see today, what you have shown, Arunabha, 6 of them, 7 of them, the issue that they'll face in 2 years is who are the mentors who have scaled up retail livelihoods? It's not about scaling, and that I see an issue. And that we need to plug, and we have and same thing. I'm sure with looking at Seva's experience, people criticize that Seva has not scaled up. I'm sorry, if Seva scales up, it will destroy the concept of Seva. Seva needs to be replicated, not scaled up in the way it is. And I think that's and we need to use the word scale up in a different form also, Arunabha.
Mr. Ramadara, you want to comment? Sorry, Renana, I think Mr. Ramadara had a 2-finger. Yes.
No, I think what Dr. Hon'ble said is absolutely correct. Instead of simply saying scale up, we should call the term distributed scale up, where replication and knowing from each other, innovating and then doing it.
Right.
That will take us to the access, reach, as well as scale up continuously.
So, Renana, I'm assuming you will not differ from what Harish and Mr. Ramadara are saying.
Can I just say something very, very quick?
Yes, of course.
Which is that I see a real gap in the financing system, a real gap. Because as you said, people do not believe giving those kind of loans, which would be to micro entrepreneurs, which would be, say, between 1 lakh to 5 lakhs, 7 lakhs, that is not available. 20 years ago, we didn't have very tiny loans. We showed evidence, and then the whole microfinance system developed. But the microfinance system is really very, very small loans. And then you have the formal finance system, which are much larger loans. But you do not have this 1 lakh to 5 lakh, 7 lakh system, which would give to these micro entrepreneurs who cannot produce, who cannot show large stocks, who cannot show balance sheets, and so on. So I think there is a very big gap in the financing system. So we need a microfinancing system for small entrepreneurs or for micro entrepreneurs. I think that's our gap.
Thank you, Renana. I'm going to now, I'm going to thank all of you on the panel for sharing very precise nuggets and tips, which should serve as sort of markers of how we evaluate the progress and the progression of powering livelihoods. But I want to, before I turn to Srinivas, I do want to request Anant Aravadam from Villgro. Because Anant, I would call as the other architect of powering livelihoods, along with my colleague Abhishek. Anant, I want to hear from you a couple of minutes about some of these issues that you've heard from the panel, from the minister, about replication rather than scale, about finance. On the ground, what does your learning or what tell you as to what's the appropriate way you would like to take this program forward?
Yeah, I think thanks so much, Arunabha, and thanks everyone for joining and making this inaugural program a great success. Just wanted maybe one observation, and I'll focus on that. I've been working with productive use or entrepreneurs who bring energy and livelihoods together. And one thing I've been observing, it's been now 3 years since myself personally and Villgro have been working with this category of entrepreneurs. One thing I'm seeing is, we no longer even think of them as energy entrepreneurs. I mean, energy is part of what they do, right? But they are really now getting more and more proficient in the specific kind of sector they work in. For example, if you take somebody in the solar cold storage, right? I mean, of course, energy is required to bring that reliability into the cold storage, but these guys have become now agriculture experts. They know crop pricing, they know fluctuations, how the crop fluctuations happen. Many of them have actually, and the successful ones have entered into the value chain themselves, right? I mean, a very good example is, one of our affiliate enterprises, S4S, which actually, they started off making solar dryers, but now they call themselves a food processing company. I mean, energy has just become integrated into what they do, and they are now focusing more on the value chain and how they can actually help the farmers who use the solar dryers sell their produce, get better value, build livelihoods and so on. So I think that is the biggest learning for me, and that is what we really need to start kind of encouraging, to take the focus off energy. I mean, though it's give it with the understanding it's a very important component, take the focus off, help these entrepreneurs to understand the value chains in which they work much better, and become all-round entrepreneurs in the true sense, where they realize what that energy is creating, and help them to kind of make those market linkages, make those help the people who are using their equipment or their products or services actually sell better, earn more money, and understand the fluctuations of the markets in which they work. So I think that is my single biggest learning of this whole thing, and we intend to kind of push that forward. In terms of the decentralized question which you asked, Arunabha, I think that's and Harish pointed out, and like you, my entire introduction to renewable energy was completely from Harish. So we completely believe in this concept of decentralized. Not only the energy, but also the development of these entrepreneurs and the work that they do in clusters, in decentralized clusters, which can then scale up, rather than a single entrepreneur trying to scale and become a gigantic organization. I think decentralization is definitely the way to go.
Thanks, Anand. This is the sort of retail entrepreneurship that Harish was referring to, that cross learning that Mr. Ramadharai was referring to, which will then perhaps open up more mainstream finance that Renana and Per were mentioning. So I have nothing left to do except to introduce my collaborator in this, Srinivas Ramanujam, who's the CEO of Villgro. Been listening very quietly. Srinivas, myself, and the former CEO of Villgro, Paul Basil, we serve on the steering committee of Powering Livelihoods. So we have to both champion it and also rap on the knuckles of Abhishek and Anand to make sure everything's on track. But Srinivas comes with more than 2 decades of experience in sales, marketing, brand management, strategy across a range of sectors. He's been an advisor to Flybird Innovations. He was an entrepreneur at Mahindra & Mahindra, helping to incubate new business concepts in the farm sectors. So Srinivas, you've heard us all, but I just want to offer our sincere thanks to you and Villgro for your partnership. Over to you to deliver the formal vote of thanks.
I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Fantastic. That today's discussions highlighting the potential of and also the economy. I'm really excited hearing this. I'm sorry, you said something.
You need to come a little closer to the microphone, Shini.
Right. I'm in fact very excited about the opportunity here that where we're going just beyond energy access and we're just beyond connectivity. And personally, when this entire program got visualized, we are hoping to harness power of. You're not able to hear him, Arnaba?
Shrini, we are struggling to hear you. Is
it any better now?
Yes, it's better. Yeah.
Okay.
If you turn to your right, we are hearing better. Probably the microphone is to your right. To your right.
Okay. Is this better now?
Yes, yes, this is better.
Okay, fantastic.
Well, we worry about hearing loss in the left or the right ear. I think Mr. Ramadhara is right. We now have to think about left or right microphones.
Yeah. So, in fact, when we started the design, at CEEW and Villgro, when we were looking at the design and how we want to make this happen, we were hoping to harness the power of entrepreneurship to see how it can benefit largest community segments of community. And as the program shaped up, pretty much everyone we spoke with, right, our donors, folks at the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, many of our supporters were so encouraging that I think it's this collective thinking and the design which has come together today, which has given us the shape. And like Arunabha mentioned right at the outset, I think this is just a start. Right? So we're working with 6 companies, but literally this is a proof of concept on helping communities become more self-reliant. And in fact, this pandemic has shown us how it can be an opportunity to become more resilient while also being sort of independent. So I'm really excited as this program is launched and we start working with these companies. It really gives us the opportunity to be able to fine-tune and hone the tools that we have, such that when we scale it up, we have a far greater chance of success. But at the same time, I really want to congratulate and wish the enterprises that are going to be working with. Right? So, Resham Sutra, Greenware, Dharamveer Food Processing, Kate Works, Divideyal Solar, and Hydro Greens. Best of luck. We really look forward to working with you in the next 3 years. And it's also been an honor and privilege to have Mr. Piyush Goyal, the Hon'ble Union Minister for Commerce and Industry and the Railways, and Dr. Rajiv Kumar, the Honorable Vice Chairman of the NITI Aayog Government of India, with us on this August occasion. It gives us a lot of positive energy and momentum to take this forward. And they've been champions of sustainable development. They've been integral to getting the push on either rural electrification, renewable energy, and innovation. So we are hoping we really can take their message across. And when the Honorable Minister spoke about the triangle and partnerships, I think this is a great, fantastic opportunity to make that happen as we get into a more self-reliant India. We also thank the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, the Government of India, and the Joint Secretary, Mr. Amitesh Sinha, for their support in getting this initiative off the ground. Surely, this is an important but a big step as we build that, put in these efforts to build a self-reliant India. We're also grateful to Her Excellency, Ms. Damilola Ogunbiyi, as she joins us and graces the occasion and endorses the Powering Livelihood initiative. It's frankly both, I think, an affirmation, an appreciation, and also, in a way, sets expectations for us on the fact that the world is watching, and probably we can take this to other markets. We can help others learn and help others replicate what we're trying to do here. So our special thanks, Mr. Per Hegenes. Thanks a lot for your support and for joining here. Thank you, Mr. Ramadurai, Mr. Hon'ble, and Ms. Jabwala. Thanks a lot for joining in. And I think your input here has been very valuable as we build on this program and we take this forward. And gratitude to our donors for the connection and the support in the Powering Livelihoods program. The UK government through the DFID, the IKEA Foundation, the Shell Foundation, the Good Energy Foundation, and Stitching Dune, as they've come together to support us on this $3 million program. We are also really immensely grateful to the partners that we have who are going to be playing a big role as we operationalize this. Power for All, Caspian Debt, Upaya Social Ventures, RAL Global Brands, and the Clean Network. I think there were conversations about how this collaboration is going to come together. all of them are going to play an integral part to making sure that this is a combined effort to getting to success. So on behalf of Dr. Arnab Ghosh and myself, we really want to thank our colleagues at Villgro and CEW who've played a huge role in the behind the scenes, putting all this together, working with the companies, and really getting it to a place where we can actually take this forward. And I think we are on a really solid footing there. And frankly, this also includes John and Meher, who made that video and who have also been documenting the process of the progress of Powering Livelihood. And last but not the least, gratitude for all the folks who've joined us today. There are hundreds of you who are looking to see how you can learn and see how this program is going to take off. Please stay in touch with us, write to us, talk to us to know about how this is going forward. And really, India needs a commitment to both jobs, a sustainable model, and frankly, I think these times also a good dose of resilience, right, as we build a self-reliant India. So we hope our this endeavor inspires more entrepreneurs, inspires more innovators, and helps us achieve both for us our goals and for them their dreams. Thanks a lot for joining us here. We look forward to sharing progress as the program rolls out. For any further information, please just please log on to poweringLivelihoods.org. Thank you once again. Wishing you all a pleasant day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You.